Good morning again. Happy Friday. Uh, First, it's important to highlight that I'm not an agile coach. I'm not a leadership coach as well. I'm just someone that I'm doing this for some time, and I like the topic. I like the subject. I like to research about it, and I like philosophy, this kind of stuff. So try to mix. And the idea today is just to share uh, what I was doing and to share some kind of tools and thoughts about the topic here. And a lot of things that are going to see, probably you guys already saw, and there is nothing really new here, but sometimes it's important to put everything again and try to review and meditate and understand how we can improve. And I think that leadership is a topic that is around us. Doesn't matter if you are today in a role that requires this kind of behavior, product owner, chapter lead, or school master, whatever, or if you are a squad member, because in the end of the day, this is what the mindset is about, is how we can lead, can be a task, can be a team, can be whatever. Okay, so just to show about myself, uh, today I am the group lead of the cybersecurity services group under onboard enablers domain that is under the responsibility of Paul Girl. We have around 90 people today in our group, internal people, GLR, and external people. I have around 17 people reporting to me here in Ireland and also in UK, because we keep with this legacy people management work until the chapter be deployed. But I had the opportunity to work in different companies before. So the first company that I was working with Agile was a semiconductor, a silicon company. And I was some kind of tribe lead there and engineering manager. It started in 2016. And before I was working in FCA and in another company with e-payment. And we worked in waterfall methodology. And before those experience, I could work in an industrial side, the manufacturing side, only Fiat in that time, and we worked with a lean methodology. And I think that my engagement with leadership started a long time ago when I was working as IT instructor. And as a instructor, a teacher, you need to deal with people in some way, influentiate them. I also had the opportunity to work running my own business and two different opportunities and different kind of business around services, technology and training, repairing some kind of smartphones or cell phones, and also giving some specific training and developing tools, hardware and software to be used in this kind of environment. So this is more or less my background and how I could deal with leadership, let's say in the real world. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. And as I said, I love philosophy, this kind of subjects, but even before the philosophy, humanity used to give some tips through the mythology. And I think that we can learn about leadership even from there. So if you think, for example, about the Greek mythology, the first god that was described in different mythology description is chaos. And the way that the Greeks used to represent chaos is more or less what you guys can see here in this picture. Some kind of dark environment, endless whole things like that. And if we think about the two initial generations of God, they were described like monsters, like you guys can see here in this picture. And only in the third generation of God that came with Zeus, they start to be more human. And if you remember the story about Zeus, he killed his father Cronus, or he won in a battle, and Zeus he started to be for the first time some kind of agent to organize or to bring the harmony in the world, and Zeus start to split or to delegate some kind of responsibility for his brothers, sisters, and uncles, aunties, and things like that. So what we can learn in this case, that the normal situation is confusion. If you want to bring harmony, we need effective leadership. And this is what the Greeks, they try to explain using the mythology. And also, second point is, if you are going to designate, to delegate something, that person, that subordinate, must have the sovereignty in that specific area, because he has more skills in that specific area. And if you spend some time reading the mythology, we can see how Poseidon and different gods, they were skilled in the departments that they were designated in, let's say like that. But if leadership is a old subject, as we are saying here, we can see this kind of the same kind of way to describe the creation of the world from the darkness and then some force organizing and so on. Why we need to talk about leadership again? And I think the reason that we need to understand a different way to do or to perform leadership, and we are calling here today as agile leadership, is because we are seeing a lot of change. So starting in 60s, you remember in that time when OPEC increased the value of the oil, the transport start to be more difficult, and we start to have this kind of globalization idea. Everything changed around the way to organize and to create the industrial process. And if you remember that the market, the job market changed as well. So the families changed, the women start to come to the market, and the way that the families used to live was changing as well. More frozen food, microwave, things like that. And everything created a different way to do business. And there is a guy, McLuhan, a philosopher or a specialist in communication, that in 1967, he brought the concept about the global village, because even that time, the television and so on started to connect the people and create this kind of various tribes around the world. Today, we can see it from the use of the smartphone and things like that. And in that book, McLuhan was talking about the way that we send or we receive information is more important than the information itself. In the beginning, that time, probably we are just consumers from that information coming from the TV, but also today we are also creating the information. And today this tribe, through the social network, has a lot of power. The traditional way to do business changed. Today we can see a lot of companies using much more the social network than the traditional means to change something. Sometimes this picture can show, we can see how we are communicating in a different way. You can see the age of someone if that person is holding the smartphone to talk. Generally, the young generation is just using to type and so on. So everything is changing in this way. And the companies and the way to work also is changing. We can see these two concepts here, the VUCA and BENI. So VUCA bringing this word that is changing a lot. We are not sure about the things, the uncertainties here, it's complex. And BENI, it's showing that it's fragile. A lot of people are anxious for the change. We don't have patience to wait the change and things like that. So it's a complex environment. And we just came out from this pandemic, or are coming out from the pandemic, and the pandemic just accelerated a trend that we are seeing the last 15 years about people cocooning themselves, so creating some kind of cocoon in the work, cocoon the friendship. We could see some companies like Facebook already doing this kind of integration, trying to create these small cocoons and to connect the work with different aspects from our personal life. And the reality is we are not adapted to this kind of environment. The leaders, mainly the beginning of the pandemic, they were a little lost about how to manage the teams, how to deal with this kind of freedom. And as human beings, we learned since our childhood, home and school and work, to be controlled, to have our time controlled and things like that. So to adapt in this new environment, it's complex. And we are living today what they're calling the world of the purpose. So if you cannot understand the purpose that you are doing something, it's not going to give you the necessary energy to do that stuff. An interesting concept as well is about the knowledge society. An author called Peter Drucker, also some time ago, he was talking about this knowledge society, and he could add few factors to Adam Smith model about the society. And if you think about the big companies today, the tech companies, they were built on knowledge, not in capital. And it is interesting because it is new. It's the first time that we can produce something, sell that thing, deliver, and continue with it, right? Remember about the old product, you have this flow, but then you need to give that stuff to the person or to the entity that you are selling. Now it's different. We are doing this, selling, and we keep. For example, today I'm here talking to you guys, sharing some ideas. Probably you guys are going to learn a few things from myself or to remember a few things from myself, but it's also going to stay with me as well. And there are some studies showing, for example, about the knowledge of society. If you the way that I'm measuring the GDP, for example, today is a way that's not fair. If you start to measure the knowledge of the GDP from US, probably the US GDP is going to be 3 times what it is today. And it also changed the worker. So the knowledge of worker is different from the industrial worker. For example, if someone during the industrial age was fired, that person could not work. Should look for a new company because the means, the tools to work used to be managed by that company. If we think about a programmer or someone working with publicity and things like that, that person is owning the means of production. And he owns the knowledge, he owns the tools. Probably, for example, talking about a programmer, he just needs a laptop and he can continue working, right? And it's totally different. And the same thing that person did or made in a previous company, he can do it again, right? So we are selling our products here, but they are also staying with us because the know-how is going to stay with us. And it is something different. Also, we are living today, we are seeing today something interesting about the experience economy. So before the differential used to be the product, but today the products are very similar. Even when someone is going to bring a very new idea and create a new product, it's not so complicated to copy that product and reproduce that again. So the difference is not in the product anymore, is in the way that you are dealing with your customer. You think about the restaurants, gas stations, and medicines. Everything looks the same. But we used to go to a restaurant sometimes. Okay, of course, the food is important, definitely. But the way, the environment, the way that you're going to be received by the waiter in that restaurant, for example, it's important, right? So it is also a new concept that is bringing more complexity to how to deal with the leadership. Exponential organizations. So if you see here, the green line is the way that the organization used to grow before in a linear way. And today we have companies growing this exponential way. So suddenly they're going to ramp up. And we need to learn how those startups are growing in this way. And if you try to see what they are doing, we can see a list of things. For example, a massive transformative purpose. So a big problem that is being solved by that company. As we saw in the picture before, if you think about Uber, they are trying to solve a problem of transportation, mobility, Airbnb, whatever, all the examples that the guys are seeing. So it's very clear what that company is trying to solve. And they have generally a disruptive idea, an innovative solution. I'm going to talk soon about the job to be done. And they are automatizing what they can. This is a difference from old companies, dinosaurs, using this big process, Excel and things like that, replacing the possession by the use. So think about, as you just said, the same examples, Uber and so on, Airbnb. They don't have a lot of material. They are using, for example, a car that someone, the work is bringing the resource. So it's a different approach. Holacracy, are going to talk about this kind of flat organization. And it's so much easier to create this kind of talent attraction, because if you have a purpose, we are going to bring people that are visionary, creative, or specialized in some specific areas, and a model that can scale. This kind of flat organization is also something that changed. Used to have this kind of very hierarchical structure, and now we are talking about light hierarchy. As we said in the beginning, we keep needing this kind of autonomy and empowerment. So basically, each one of us in a company must be accountable, must be responsible for something. So the staff, gray-zone staff, is being replaced by a role. So each one is responsible for something. And then we can split the organization and small groups empowered to do the work, instead to have this kind of very hierarchical structure. And the companies, they need to change. Is change or die. They are seeing every day a lot of big players used to do stuff in the same way. And the old methods are not working anymore, right? We need to change. And this is the reason that a lot of companies are talking about Agile all the time. So if we research about Agile, and I'm talking with colleagues from different companies that I work at, and it's not different. The majority of the companies are passing, or they already passed through this digital transformation that includes Agile methodologies. Because the problems that they're trying to solve today, they are getting more and more complex. And it's not hard, it's not easy to predict when you have a complex problem to solve. So the Agile methodology about try and learn, it's bringing some kind of solution for these companies. For example, as you can see here, 71% of the companies in US are working in Agile. And we can see more numbers showing how the Agile is helping the companies to be more productive. And if you have a different way to work, you have a different methodology, you need to have a different way to perform leadership. So what is a product? We asked this question some time ago. A product could be a good, a car, glass, but this professor, Clayton Christensen from Harvard, he wrote a concept that can help us to understand what is a product. So basically, a product is a job to be done, is a solution for someone else's problem, and it is only a product if someone is going to buy it because it is a solution, right? And it's interesting because it aligns with something that sometimes we are understanding in a non-correct way. Because if you think about what is the purpose of a company, we can initially reply, oh, it's profit. But profit is just an indicator. The purpose of a human being or a company is survival, is to remain. And it's interesting because leadership is not a position, but is a task. And as a task can be learned. And what leaders are going to do, they're going to make choice. And the followers are going to follow. And a leader is going to be perceived by the followers as someone that is going to make the right choice to guarantee the group's survival. And if we scale it, we can see what the company is going to do. So how the leadership can help that company to survive, right? And in this very complex environment, the traditional leadership is not suitable anymore. So if we think about the traditional leadership, we can think about two different models. The army model that is based on the discipline, and the religion model that is based on the competence. So the army, for example, it's very clear, the hierarchy and the discipline, and you need to obey, because if you're not going to obey, you're going to be removed. And if you think about the religion, majority of them, it's about the competence, someone that's going to pass through the whole path, priest, bishop, cardinal. Then you have someone that can give you or can instruct you because he already performed that role before. But now we are facing the end of this the concept of subordination. It disappeared in this knowledge society that we talked before, because now the subordinate knows more than the boss. And the old way to measure the performance in the industrial age no longer applies, because, for example, if you want to produce mugs in the industrial time, you can just count the mugs per minute, and then you can evaluate the result. But now it's different. And now the leader needs to deal more as a conductor that is conducting orchestra, for example, because he knows or she knows that a musician in a specific place knows much more than him or her. But as a conductor, he has the end-to-end vision, and he can lead the team to the same objective. And basically, again, make choice, influence. And this is what the leader must do: make choice, define objectives, and guide the team through the influence. Again, it's not new, but what is different now is a leader doesn't know what is the maximum that someone in the knowledge society can do. Even the work doesn't know, right? So how to deal with this new environment? And we can bring the digitalization, because today we are all digital leaders, and you need to manage the intangible, not time anymore. And the perception that someone is going to give you the best that he or her can, it's something that is new, it's complex. But this is what the leaders need to do. And the challenge in here is to create something new. In order to create something new, it's necessary to disorganize, to disturb, take the people out of the comfort zone. And generally, human beings, they hate to change, even if it's intangible. And this is the importance of the leader to learn, to understand how to help retain the best people. Can be the team, can be a supplier, can be a product. And only working with the best people is the guarantee that we can survive. And one important thing that the leaders, they need to learn today is to discard what is inadequate, be a product, can be a process. And this is a big issue with the companies, because the companies, they have a problem with discarding. There is a difference between management and leadership. So basically, management is to run the PDCA, plan, do, check, and act. And the work that the leader is going to do is above it, is something. It's during the plan, for example, how to influence that creation. During the do and the check, how to analyze the issues. And during the act, how to take the decisions, or take the decisions, the correct decisions. I'm not saying that the leader cannot do the management. Of course, if necessary, he can go there and do it. But as a leader, must be around and try to guide the team instead to stay trying to do this kind of micromanagement. And today, dealing with this very complex environment, it's important to have this kind of complex thinking, learn how to manage the complexity. And it's necessary to have this kind of mindset, to think and analyze. I like the expression methodology, the Jack Streeter. So get a big problem that's complex, for example, managing obstacles. And instead to try to solve all the problems, let's step by step how to translate that complexity and small chunks that we can solve. And it's important to innovate and modify, create a structure, a process with objectives, and encourage the innovation, and encourage to try, fail, try again until complete what is necessary. So Agile leader is I like this example here, a triad, kind of three things that can help us to improve, to be better leaders. One, Agile leadership that we talk a little about. Second one, there is a model, there is a tool that can help us, this situational model. And finally, the positive leadership. And talking about the Agile leadership, it is important because if you want to build a high-performance team, we need to have this kind of Agile leadership style, because a high-performance team is go beyond the expectations. And interesting that the group performance is not going to be defined by the average. Generally, the group performance is limited by the less capable element, and the leader is responsible to define it, to create a team, to help that person to be adjust to the group, right? And we try to see the characteristics of a high-performance team. We can see purpose is there, the trust is there, the objectives are clear, the leadership is there, the infrastructure, the resources, you can find them, team people, the communication is effective, the motivation, and also the evaluation and reward. So the leader needs to put those stuffs in a clear way. And starting from the purpose. What is purpose? Purpose is the reason that we are doing something. What is the intention, the why? And it's fundamental. As I said before, during this remote environment, working from home environment, that we cannot control the time anymore. The purpose, the objective, and to bring each member of the team to be part of that objective is fundamental. So the companies need to create this kind of purpose, a clear vision, and it's up to the leader to translate it in something that the team can understand. And this is part of the objective, as highlighting here, concrete actions that we are going to do to achieve aspiration, the what. And a goal is a way to measure that objective. And the results are the indicators that's going to be used to measure it. And talking to someone that is working implementing Agile in the Silicon Valley in the last 20 years, something interesting that he told me was, all the companies that I saw failing trying to implement Agile, because the easiest part of the implementation is to create the ceremony, to create squads, to create stand-ups, meetings, and sprints. But the hard part is to define a clear vision and translate that vision in a roadmap that everyone can understand. And I think that we are seeing this in our daily activity. We are seeing the improvement, but again, it's up to us as leaders, keep trying to help the organization to translate that vision and something that the team can understand and can be empowered. It's important for the leader to identify the skills of each one member from that team and put the right people in the right place at the right time. Because if someone enjoys what he's doing, definitely he's going to do the best. And a leader needs to use the right tools to identify and help the people to be in the right place. There is a theory from David Ulrich, the three C's, that can help us to understand the importance of everything that we are talking here. So productivity is equal competence multiplied by commitment multiplied by contribution. So competence is the know-how, is the knowledge that each one of us we have. Commitment is the wish to be part, to do something. And contribution is the meaning, is why we are doing that. If someone is competent, but for example, is not committed, they're going to fail. If someone is committed, but there is no competence, that the skills are not there, also that person is going to fail. And even if someone has the competence and the commitment, if that person cannot understand why he or she is doing that, also is going to fail. So it's important to keep the three C's in the right way in order to succeed. And again, the leader is in charge to verify each member and understand if the three C's are there. The Agile mindset is also something very important because, for example, here we can see the fast versus Agile. A truck downhill is fast, but it's not Agile. And a cheetah, a leopard, is Agile because it can change the direction anytime that is necessary. And this is something that you need to learn. Agile is not about to do the things faster. Of course, do faster to fail, it's important, but is about be prepared to react if you have a problem, if you understand that what you are doing is not necessary anymore. And one very important thing that Agile is bringing is the understanding about time. So it's bringing the time, the time variable in a way that humans can understand. So we created time. But we think, for example, about a child. A child can only understand the now. Sometimes it's necessary to grow a little to understand what means tomorrow. And we are gaining maturity, learning what is tomorrow, what is the day after tomorrow, what is 1 year. But more than 1 year is not human. It's very hard to understand. And companies mainly, for example, can use our example as companies developing cars that used to take 4 or 5 years. Sometimes there is a necessity to see a timeline of 4 or 5 or even more. And we know that for a human, it's very hard to understand. It's not feasible. So Agile is about, okay, let's create some high-level plan about what we're going to do in that time, but let's bring the work to a dimension that I can understand. Let's think about now, about today, about the next 2 weeks or the next 3 months. And it is something that is helping the organizations and is helping the individuals to understand what they are doing and why. And if you see the Agile Manifesto, that I don't need to repeat, but it started with software development and then spread to other different tasks. We can see that the objective here is to replace all the bureaucracy by interaction. So interaction, communication between individuals over process and tools, something working over the documentation, customer collaboration over the contract, responding to change over the following the plan. It's not saying that there is no value from the right side, saying that there is more value from the left side, and it is important because we are in an area, a market that we need a good documentation. We are implementing cars. We are talking here about safety of the people. So to think, for example, about Spotify implementing something wrong, what can happen if they don't have a good documentation? Maybe you're going to press a button and play Beyonce instead to play Led Zeppelin, but in our case, we can kill people. So find the right balance is a challenge, but the manifesto is about to guide our mindset and how to organize ourselves. There is nothing new again in the Agile concept. If you think about Jack Welch from GE, the model to create teams of specialists and then allocate that team of specialists in cross-functional teams that can deliver some kind of a specific work. And the idea was used in many different situations and it worked. And this is what Agile is trying to bring, how to create teams that can deliver something end-to-end. And about the size of the team, that the speaker can help us to understand. So if you have 3 people, how they are going to interact, 7 people and 11 people, you can see the complexity growing. And it was measured in the real world, and they could see that the performance and the productivity decreasing if you are growing too much the team, right? So again, the leader is in charge to understand those concepts and make sure that the team has the right size to perform. About the behavior, because the Agile mindset again is bringing this kind of a team that's going to be self-manageable, people are going to define the how, the leader is going to define the what, but how we can bring it to our reality, because sometimes can seem some kind of contradiction. What I said before about the normal is the confusion, the harmony is artificial, created by the leadership. So it's not different here. We have mature people in a squad doing the work, defining the how, but again, without a clear leadership, without a facilitator that's going to help to create a culture of a good relationship, that's going to help to give fast feedbacks, It's going to help to solve any misalignment or misunderstanding. It's going to fail, right? So the leader has this responsibility to share and delegate. And we are learning how to work remotely, and it's a big challenge. And we need to keep trying to do our best, because now we have squads, projects that are spread around the world, and the communication here is fundamental. So the leader must talk to the people, must connect with them, must create this identity. And it's not only the communication between the leader and that individual, how, as a facilitator, he can create an environment that the squad members can communicate among themselves. In order to help us to do this kind of good leadership, we have tools, methodologies, models that can help us. And we need to navigate and adapt to each situation. For example, here in this picture, you can see one model. And we can see how we are going to adapt our style of leadership with the people that we are helping, that we are supporting. And basically, there is a model called situational leadership, that you need to go from the autocracy, where the leader is going to define everything, the process, and so on. We need to don't confuse it with someone that is authoritarian, to the democracy, when they're going to allow the team, the members, to choose the way that they're going to work. So this picture here can help us to understand how we can use this situational leadership model, the second element from that triad. And basically, we have 4 styles. We have a style S1, for example, that is to give more the direction. S2 is less participative and more providing the coaching. S3, it's more supporting. And finally, S4 is about delegation, give the general guidelines, and allow the members to go away and do the work. So what is the best style? Each one of us will have more, naturally speaking, more connection with one of them, but there is no bad or good. It's like rain. Rain is good or bad. So rain can get us wet. From the agriculture perspective, sometimes rain is good. If I'm trying to do a barbecue, that day, for example, it's going to rain, it's going to be bad for me. And that is a good example that can help us to understand about those styles. If you're going, for example, if you think about someone that is an instructor that is trying to help someone to learn how to drive, a middle-aged person that had some kind of problem in the past, and in this case, maybe in the first class, the instructor is going to be more directive, is going to help that person, is going to give clear instructions. So put the gear shift in the first one and press the pedal, things like that. And then when the person is going to get more maturity, he can move to a way more providing coach, and then finally one day before the test, more supporting. And someday, if you're going to meet that person, and that person is going to give you a lift, probably you're going just to observe. Oh, I want to stay in that place, and that person is going to drive by itself. So as you can see, the people are the same, instructor and someone learning. The task is the same, but we are going to change our style following the maturity of that member that we are supporting. And the maturity here represented by D1 until D4. D1 is someone, for example, that has low competence, but has some kind of, and also has low will to own responsibilities. They choose someone with low competence, but trying to get more responsibilities. D3 is someone with a good competence, but a little hesitant to get more responsibilities. And D4, someone that is competent and wishing or trying to have more responsibilities. And it doesn't mean that I am D2, I am D4. I'm going to change my maturity based in the role that I am performing. For example, I was a squad PO with a limited amount of people that I was trying to lead, and suddenly I was moved to be a group PO. So if I was in that time a D4 talking about a squad PO, now I can be a D3, can be a D2 because the situation changed. And the leader must understand this kind of change. And the leader must have the capability to diagnose or to identify what that specific person needs and be flexible to move across different styles of leadership. And understand that we need to change again the style of the leadership if that person is improving the performance. And the resilience is about how we as a leader can navigate across different styles. Another important thing is about fear. So we need to eliminate the fear from the environment, because the fear is always bad talking about team performance. So this example, it's clear. If you are walking a curb, it's going to be so much easier if you try to walk in a terrace, in the edge of a terrace, in the edge of a building. Because for walking that situation, in a high situation, you're going to have fear. The task is the same, but if you have fear around the environment, your ability to perform the task is going to decrease. And a leader must be optimistic. And what is someone optimistic? Is someone that thinks that the future is going to be better than the present. A pessimist is someone that thinks that the future is going to be equal today or even worse. So no one wants to follow someone that is thinking about the future that's going to be worse than today. So a leader must create an environment that can remove the fear and can provide this kind of optimism to the rest of the team. And here we have 4 strategies to do this kind of stuff. So first one, again, cultivate this positive environment. People are more intelligent, more creative if you have a positive environment. As humans, again, we are trained to pay attention to the negative in order to survive. Develop positive relationships. So it is important because we want to be part of a group. And if you're feeling that I'm going to be removed from that group, again, I'm going to start to feel fear again. And it's important to the leader to understand, be capable to identify that someone is feeling like that and try to create this positive relationship. Of course, we have people with problems in all different situations. Vampires, for example, people that used to be there and to get all the good energy. So how we can help those people? So we need to follow some kind of steps, right? Some study was showing that we can work in 4 steps to try to help that person. We can be honest and give a direct feedback. We need to support him during the development. If we are feeling that it's not working, we need to be prepared to move that person to a position that is not a key position. And if you try everything, use all the support from the HR, and is not working because that person doesn't want to work in that kind of environment, unfortunately, we need to give that person the opportunity to be happy in our competitor, because the leader, again, is accountable to make sure that the environment is good for the rest of the team. Another important point is about the affirmative language. So again, we need to avoid to use some kind of terms or sentence that can demotivate instead to motivate. For example, someone in a final cup going to kick the ball and is going to do a mistake. Probably that person is going to be sad because the objective was to don't do that mistake. So instead, you just go there and call that person, oh, you did that mistake and whatever. How can we help that person to realize that, okay, I know that you try to do your best, but you're failing. So we have 3 steps that can help us. Try to talk to that person and allow that person to describe what happened and why that person failed. And then we can allow that person to describe the consequence of what occurred there. And instead to talk, oh, if I were you, I will do this way. We can use, for example, saying, oh, when I was in a similar situation, I did this way. So we can allow that person to realize what happened and to understand by himself or herself how to change the situation. And finally, the leader is in charge to create positive meanings, and we can have 3 different people. Someone that is doing a job, probably with a low productivity, waiting to have the happy hour Friday, 6 o'clock p.m. We can have someone that is pursuing a career, is going to have an average performance, or we can have someone that is not calling. So that person cannot imagine himself or herself in a different situation, and the productivity is going to be high. The happy hour is going to happen Monday morning. It's like a doctor, for example, in a walk-in clinic. If that doctor is just doing a job, probably if you ask what he's going to do there, oh, I'm going to wait someone to come, a patient, or if there is no one, I'm going to sleep. But if a doctor is not calling, if no one is there, I'm going to ICU to help people that they so the leader should be in charge.
Felipe, your sound has gone there.
And to help the right people to do the right thing, trying to do the call.
I think we lost you, Felipe.
Yeah.
All right.
Felipe, we cannot hear you.
Felipe, is he gone?
Maybe they cannot hear us. He cannot hear
Yeah,
us. Maybe.
I'll bring him.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
We are doing daily. The first one, careful. This social network of the market is generally the liar. So all the market is generate of the liar. Try to differentiate what is real. Each company, each organization is going to have pros and cons. And there's no doubt about it. And that the real world is different. And again, even if everything that we are doing now, any war, recession.
He didn't respond to you there, no?
Open loop.
No, actually, he's
Oh,
engaged
that's
in the...
disappointing there. Towards the end of it.
This is complicated for one. We need to hope this problem through our resilience. And another word that is important is about thinking. The ability to face the situation. Trying to
doing the right step. Mediation ability. Coming for today, understand and I think when it is happening and being taken to further that situation, we need to use what we have, what we agree with that person. Even if you don't agree in 8% of the things, that's the starting at 9% that we agree. The real relationship try to find a way. And finally, diversity. Diversity. So not only about gender, about race work, diversity of how each one sees how at different times. Thank you very much. I think we can
Felipe, can you hear us?
I think he finally sees the messages.
Ah, God. Felipe, can you hear us? No, I'd say
Don't think it gets through him. No.
Oh, God.
Hello, can you hear me?
Ah, Felipe, God. Heart to Felipe. First thing I'll say, right? And an amazing job. Absolutely well done. Some fantastic information there. The last couple of minutes, you were in, the sound just faded out, so we probably lost the last 5 minutes. But we obviously, the final tips that you've up there, we could follow. That's from me. I think you did an amazing job. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So basically, the final tips are about understand that our problems that we cannot solve, we are dealing with a complex environment, war, pandemic, and so on. So we need to learn how to cope with. And something that is very complicated for our generation is about hoping, having patience, to wait. And finally, the mediation ability, how to understand that we have a misalignment and then be able to find, if we don't agree with someone, 80% of things that he's saying, let's try to start from the 20% and then create the connection, and then we can discuss the 80% and find a middle term.
Felipe, could I make a request? Is
Definitely.
it possible for you to run another session into next week or the week after when it suits your calendar? I'm sure a lot of us on the call today will go back to our teams and inform the teams as to how well the presentation went today. And I think it would be a missed opportunity for some that didn't have the time to attend today's one. Would that be something that you might consider?
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Great. Okay, we can talk offline then.
And it
Thank you.
and it is recorded already in my machine. I'm going to circulate the link today by the end of the day.
Brilliant.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
also.
good
Take
week.
care.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
thanks,
Thank you.
Felipe.
Thank you,
Really,
Felipe.
bye.
Was
Thanks.
good. Thank you.
Thanks, Felipe. Well done.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Cheers.
Thanks.
You still there?